watch the world burn. I got the gasoline. I wanna watch the world burn and everyone get mean.
Dude, I hated you the whole time. Well, not exactly the whole time, but maybe at least most of the time. That's what I'm taking away from the story. Hello, OBLers. Thanks for joining me. I'm just kind of blown away by the story that I found. And essentially, there's this guy. This story is that of Dan and Sue Fogel. And unfortunately, Dan lost his wife, Sue Fogel, to cancer. So they're an older couple. They're in their 70s, but the takeaway from this is after 45 years, I thought I knew her, but I didn't. So I'm blown away by that. I mean, 45 years, I mean, that's quite a bit of anybody's lifetime. That's essentially more than half of what the average life expectancy is going to be really just about anywhere in the world. And so it's taken someone, in this case, Dan, almost 50 years, almost half a century to realize that he didn't know his wife in the way that he had hoped, in the way that he thought that he would. So as I mentioned, unfortunately, she died. And of course, he grieved because he was married to her for quite some time. But here's a quote from the article that I saw that chronicled their story. It says that grieving became a chisel. And this is in Dan's words. It broke away the shell of what I had believed about Sue, myself, and our relationship, and forced me to see that I didn't know Sue deeply. So just think about that, because where we are right now, as we're in the middle of the 2020s, everything is expedited. You know, we want our food fast. We want our education fast. We want to know about people quickly, and we can see their Snapchat, we can see their Insta, we can see whatever it is that we think that we're getting to learn from folks, but obviously that's not necessarily the case. So, you know, this is our best letters, and this is a letter from our elders even sharing with us that sometimes they struggle, sometimes they grapple with their own relationships, totally blown away by that in and of itself. So you might think, I mean, how could this happen? How could someone not know someone after that extended period of time? I mean, think about your relationships, whether if they're romantic, whether if they're friendly, whether if it's family or whatever it might be. You might think that you really do know about folks, especially so many people chronicle things online, but we also know too that people will show you only what they want you to see when they're online. And I guess that happens offline just as well too, even if you are in a marriage and even if you are married for multiple decades like this. So how could this happen? Well, here's what Dan said. He said, we had used unspoken rules of conduct, dimmed our intimacy, and foiled self-inspection. I learned that despite our years together, Sue had locked away secrets. We used loving gestures and words to avoid authentic and painful truths, what Buddhists call near enemies. We never asked each other the important question, who are you in the deepest part of your heart and soul? And that's so good. Who's anybody in the deepest part of their heart and soul? I mean, I don't really know that a lot of folks can readily answer that if you were to ask them that point blank. And even if you have an extended period of time to know someone, I mean, just think how much people can change along the way. But on this channel, I mean, we're here to reflect. We're here to live our best lives, and we won't always get it right. I mean, I've said before, and I'll say here, I'm not here to be right. I'm here to get it right. And here's an opportunity for us to get it right. So I'll ask you, who are you in the deepest part of your heart and soul? I mean, and that's obviously an evolving answer. What you're saying today, I would think would evolve, would change in the future as you get to learn more about yourself and to get better acquainted. And that's hard to do in the TikTok world. It's hard to do in a world of tweets, in a world of texting. It's very hard to do in a world of sound bites, but that's something for us to reflect upon. And I have to do that myself. I mean, I've been on a journey We all are on a journey. I'm trying to learn more about my own self and relationships. And I've been on a 15-year journey. I'm still on it with processing this. So I'm blown away that here's someone 3 times the length of being in a significant relationship with their partner and then not really knowing that. And also to this, I mean, we use loving gestures and words to avoid authentic and painful truth. So clearly there was a lot that was there underneath the surface that they just didn't want to deal with. I mean, and what is that in your situation? I mean, what might you not be confronting about yourself, and what might you not be confronting about the person that you might be in a relationship with? I mean, how are you taking the time to process this? So many of us have unprocessed traumas and all sorts of issues that we're just grappling with. So I don't know. There's just so much to deal with this here. So again, Dan is a writer. This older gentleman is very well educated. He writes, he publishes, so he has a really command on the English language, a good command on it, and a facility for words. Dan went on to say that my Sue, his wife, the deceased woman, my Sue, left a few handwritten notes in books and files around the house, as well as several journals. When I began to read them, I found that she was not stoic, as he had once thought that she was. She had plenty of painful thoughts that she never said out loud. Hence this, "I think I hate him," she once wrote, referring to me. So yeah, so there clearly were a lot of issues underneath the surface, and it just simmered. And how much goes unsaid when you're with people? I mean, things may look confessional because people blog about their lives, they blog about them, they write books. We're platformed for better and for worse. And we see that, but does that translate to one's personal life? I mean, we see the public life, but you have to wonder, are you as forthcoming and as direct in your own life when there's no camera, when there's no ring light, when you're not streaming? I just have to think about that. And, you know, I'm really trying not to let things simmer. I mean, a lot of you probably have heard of Bronnie Ware, and she's written a book, she's done a TED Talk, and she's talked about her time working in hospice care, working with those at the end of their lives and looking at major regrets. And a lot of regrets, and I've got the book too, regrets of the dying. And one of the top ones that people have, top regrets, is not living a life that was true to oneself. You know, and a lot of that I would think would go along with not saying what needs to be said, not, you know, confronting it head on. So I'm hoping that we're not doing that. We have the benefit of still living, the benefit of animating, of breathing and doing things. We're at the start of a new year. So why not be reminded of this? Why not rededicate ourselves to taking the time to confront some things in the process along the way? Dan went on to say this, that I never knew that she, meaning Sue, hated our move to Pittsburgh in 1990, our 7th relocation, 7, that's a lot, since 1973, including one to Budapest. Sounds cool though. I learned from her journals that Sue had been tired of the changes, but she never said so to me. She picked out 2 Pittsburgh houses she liked. We had to buy one quickly, and Dan chose the wrong one. Sue asked me to walk away from the deal the day of signing. Why didn't I? So there's a regret that's there. So at least she did vocalize that. But beyond us writing our letters and journaling and doing things of that sort, what are we doing to activate our letters? What are we doing to take that writing to the next level so that it becomes life? I love writing. I hope that you do as well too. AI is trying to replace a lot of writers, but we still are human, and we need to have the strong focal point of making sure that we've got the command of our words. So what regret might you be grappling with, and how can you work on that? Put that in the comments, put that on the chat, in the chat, if it's not too personal for you in terms of that. And also grappling with, what's it like to take the wrong path, to make the wrong decision, to choose the wrong option. I'd love to hear what you've got to say about that as well too, and how you've worked the process through that. And something else too, what happens when our best letters happen to be our hidden letters? I mean, Sue had been writing this dossier of sorts, maybe even a manifesto, but no one read it. No one saw it until the very end. I mean, just think if this could have been known up front, so there wouldn't have had to be suffering on both sides of the equation. It's so tragic in so many ways, but it is what it is. So Dan really just struggled with this and had to contend with these questions after the fact. And by the way, I applaud him for his bravery, and I applaud him for him being candid and sharing this. And by no means am I here to speak ill of the dead. No means am I here to make a prescription about this particular couple, because obviously I haven't met them. These are people that are decades my senior. So I'm actually here to learn, just like I'm sure that you are as well. So this is by no means no disrespect, but I'm looking at this because I'm curious, because I'm blown away from it, because I'm fascinated, because I'm a person who has struggled with personal relationships and I'm attempting to get better. So I'm here being confessional, and perhaps you are here as well too. And maybe you can offer some advice to me as you're hearing what I've got here as well. But Dan had a lot of questions, and one of the things he asked is, was that why she hated me? And that was the whole notion of the house in Pittsburgh and just maybe not listening to her. But he goes on, or was it because she wanted to get her PhD in horticulture, a desire I discovered in her journals, yet my demands took precedent over hers? Or was it that I did not see her for who she was? And if she had something to say, why didn't she say it out loud? I mean, now there he's really getting into the crux of the situation. I think that's the bigger issue, is him not seeing her. We all want to be seen. We want representation. We want to show up in the world. And I think it's harder to become visible in the world where more and more people are seemingly visible. More and more people are platformed and they get to take up space. Everyone is getting their 15, not even 15 minutes, but their 15 seconds of fame. I mean, there could be some good to that, but at the same time, it can reduce us to a pixel. It can reduce us to just the flavor of the second, to just a soundbite, to just some kind of a dopamine hit. So are we all being seen or not? And if so, how are we being seen? But there's really something to learn from that. And as I mentioned, Dan is accomplished. Dan, I think, is in academia. He has his PhD. So he was able to cultivate his skills and talents up to and through the level of a doctorate. And she wanted to do the same, but didn't get to do that. So that's unrealized potential that way. And you know what? I mean, we are in this new year, as I just said, and whatever it is that you want to do, really work to cultivate it. If you want your doctorate, go get it. If you want to travel, figure out a way to make it to happen. Make your plans, visualize it, write it down, and take those action steps to make it happen. Don't dim your light. Don't dim your light. And I think that when you do, as they say, the notion of that secrets in us can make us sick, right? I mean, so don't let that stew over. Don't fester with that. But at least, Dan was being proactive. He said, I went to therapy after her death and kept reading. I was forced to unravel the assumptions that we had based our lives upon. I felt lost about who she was at the core. So we want to be seen, we want to be known, and we ultimately want to leave a legacy, because that's all that we've got at the end of the day. The corpse goes away, but the consciousness is what we're leaving behind. And I would much rather want to leave something that is well developed, something that people can really learn from rather than just a lots of questions and lots of regrets. And I hope that you're taking the steps to do the same thing as well. So this is just kind of that reminder here. If you've got a relationship with someone, love them, talk to them, and you're probably already doing that, but maybe here's a little reminder to love them again and maybe to keep talking and to figure some things out. If you're struggling in that relationship, well, talk as well too, and maybe seek out counseling or whatever that you have to do before. I remember being in past relationships and there were couples counseling that we had tried, and there was some benefit to that at the time. But ultimately, I realized that I really had to work on myself, that there was just so much that I didn't have. Some of the questions that Dan is asking about Sue in terms of who was she? Him asking, I didn't know her to the core. Well, I've been asking myself those things. And fortunately, a lot more of that has been revealed. And so hopefully as time goes on, I will be much better equipped, much better prepared to be in a relationship. And perhaps Dan will find love in the future and he'll be able to keep the memory and legacy of Sue alive, because there is a full article here, and I will put that link in the description so that you can read more of it yourself. He does commemorate Sue as a devoted wife, nevertheless, as a devoted grandmother. And there's this really touching picture of her, Sue, actually meeting her grandchild, just a little baby, 6 months before Sue passed. So she at least did get to have some really nice things that were there towards the end of her life in terms of the next generation and the such. But I'm just so moved. I'm just so touched by this story, and I'd love to know what you think about it as well too. So definitely comment, definitely like, leave your email address if you want more content like this as well. And obviously, if you want me to come and speak in your school, if you want me to speak in your college, your nonprofit, whatever it is, to talk about relationships, to talk about identity and showing up, to talk about things that clearly relate to the interpersonal, how we relate with other people, as well as the intrapersonal, how we relate to ourselves and dealing with our own self-concordance, self-concept. Look me up, hit me up, ronniegladden.com. Definitely do that. Leave that email address if you want more content like this and want more value in addition as well. ourbestletters.com to check out my book, White Girl Within. That's also about showing up. And in that book, it's a series of letters, and it is the internal white female attempting to find expression and release an outlet and to be cultivated too. So I see some parallels there in my own work and this story here that I just read. So thanks so much for coming by again. And we're going to do this. I'll talk to you soon. And of course, leave me a letter. See ya. Peace.